Denzel was like if Macaulay Culkin, if Kevin McAllister from Home Alone grew up and became like a special forces murderer
Special forces
versus
black guy.
yeah, black guy. Yeah, if he if he grew up, became special forces and was black, he would be Denzel Washington in this movie because he sets these traps up and all this fun stuff. But like the final battle takes place in Home Depot, where you're seeing like what would happen if someone that was an efficient killer could use all these weapons for ways to take guys out. Like it very much felt like maybe the writer or director was like shopping at Lowe's and was like, you know what? You could totally do a movie in here. Like you could do so many things with these weapons and tools. And for whatever reason, I thought that was like such a cool like final battle to have. So.
And welcome back. The Movie Dads Podcast. We're back after a hiatus. A couple weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't know. It feels like an eternity. We've been gone. But we're back now. We're the Movie Dads. We're your hosts. I'm Howie.
I'm Kyle. And we're back.
And that's Kyle. And we are back. Episode number 20. The 2014 action. I can't believe you haven't seen it, Kyle. The Equalizer, starring Denzel Washington.
I don't think a lot of people are saying that, though. Like, I can't believe you haven't seen The Equalizer with Denzel Washington.
Here's the deal.
A lot of people have seen it.
There's a lot of people that have seen that movie.
And well, enough that they made two more.
Two more, right. And then, you know, and I mean, you're a movie guy, so it's kind of odd you hadn't seen The Equalizer.
It's true. This is true.
It's odd. So it's episode number 20. We're here. 20.
Look at that.
Look at that. Look at us. Who would have thought? But got to address the elephant in the room. We had a hiatus. So I went to Canada and we had recorded episode 19, Blue Beetle, right before I left, like the night before we left. I got 3 hours of sleep and then drove to Canada.
Wow, that was so long ago when you say that.
I know.
Blue Beetle was the last one. Wow.
Yeah. I drive to Canada and I'm like, I'm going to try and upload on the drive. Try to upload the podcast onto YouTube. Didn't happen. No way. Then I tried to upload in the cabin, which has like dial-up version of Wi-Fi. And it took 2 days to upload. My laptop sat in the corner of the cabin while we were fishing. And 2 days later, it finally said, the alert finally came up that the episode had uploaded. So that happened. Then I was in Canada and I got back and we were going to record episode 20 and I got sick. And like your brother said, champions carry through.
Champions perform.
Champions perform.
Period. Is what I
when
got
it's a podcast and you literally cannot talk, I could not have performed. I wouldn't have been able. I wouldn't have been able to perform that night. So I apologize.
Story of your life.
Story of my life. But let's get to the business part of it, things. So if you're watching us on YouTube, click that like and subscribe, please. Leave us a comment. Click that bell so you get an alert when a new episode comes out because your bell hasn't rung for a while and it's about to ring again, baby.
Yeah. We are the worst. But
we're the best.
I love it.
We're the best. And if you're not watching us on YouTube, hopefully you're listening to us on a podcast service such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, or Podcast Index. And then you can find some of our short videos on social media at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Boy, like riding a bike.
Yeah.
Right back into things.
Like we never left.
Like we never left. But
here we are.
Here we are. We're Movie Dads. We've got movie kids. A lot's gone on in the last couple weeks. So fall sports are in literal full swing. And I got to talk about Reagan has started fall softball. Now, fall softball is not near as competitive as spring softball. They don't really there's no tournaments. They kind of just play. It's kind of like the you're staying fresh kind of league, right? Like it's, you're playing games against other teams, but it doesn't mean as much. There's no tournaments, there's no trophies, there's none of that, right? So that started. First game is Sunday, which I'm super excited about. And then, of course, first game Sunday for flag football for Des,
the boys,
and Grayson, right? And their fancy Buffalo Bill socks.
God, dude, your son was running around the neighborhood in a Bills hat today.
He brought that inside, and I told him to take it back outside. The socks are bad enough.
I saw him, was like, whoa, you're going all in.
I actually said to him, I said, what the hell is on your head right now?
Bro, that's a serious, in our world, if you guys know us in person, we're like annoyingly diehard fans of our teams, but like it's such a small thing. Like last year, I think I had to watch Howie's dog for like a weekend while he was gone, and I put the dog in a Jags jersey, and that caused a lot of friction that we are still getting over. So
still talk through it.
This stuff's a big deal. So, yeah, you guys thought we took 2 weeks off because Howie was dying and in Canada, but really it's because we were still getting over that issue from a year ago.
From a year ago, yeah.
Yeah, excited for football. I can still not wrap my head around how in the state of Nebraska, no one will schedule any youth sports on a Saturday because that's when the Huskers play. And they are like super respectful of that. We would never schedule anything during the Husker games so we can watch them blow a lead and lose every single week like they have for the last 10 years. And I'm not from here. I'm a Californian, so I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, folks. But then on Sundays when it's NFL football, because in the past, no one in Nebraska had an NFL team because there was nobody good. But since the Chiefs became good a couple years ago, now everybody here is a Chiefs fan. But they still schedule
bullshit.
It is very
makes
frustrating.
Me angry.
The folks that weren't watching the Chiefs 2 or 3 years ago that now are diehard. So it's whatever. That's part of life. That's how sports work.
Bandwagon is a thing.
It's rampant in the city of Omaha. They schedule sports on Sundays like literally right at kickoff. Like they could do it super early. Kickoff's in the middle of the day, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. They could do it early in the morning or even in the evening. And I would get aggravated.
Fine. Check this out. Flag football is at what? Is it at noon?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So guess what? Then Reagan has a double header. First game's at 1:30 and 3.
Oh, bro. Well, it's not as bad for you because at least this weekend, because you guys played yesterday.
Correct.
But like maybe I'm a horrible dad for doing it, but I always have the Jags on my phone. That's really how I watch them every week.
I'll be sitting next to you.
I'm always on the move. Football. So, I don't know if it's on a time, if the game's on they just go play by an hour, if they actually have quarter lengths at this age. I'm not quite sure.
We'll find out.
It'll be fine. I'm pumped to see Grayson and Des play, whether they play a lot or a little or whatever, however it goes. Your wife posted a video yesterday of like Grayson and Desi running like basically a read option.
Yep.
Which was fucking awesome. It was a pleasant little surprise to get that video. I was happy to see it. So excited for that. Very excited for that. Sports are back. Kids are playing sports. And I guess since we're talking about getting excited, let's talk about the my favorite segment, the segment that gets us up and excited, our 6 to midnight. So 6 to midnight is where we talk about things that are coming up that get us really excited, or things that we're currently like nerding out about, new things that have dropped or something that we're playing in terms of like video games. And for me, I've been talking about this game since our podcast started. Starfield finally came out, and my God, it has been hard to go back to work every day because if I could find a way to get paid a living to just play this game, I would never do anything else. It's perfect. It's amazing. I am a space pirate Han Solo, just trekking the galaxy, taking ships over, selling loot. Freaking awesome. It's the first game like ever where you can truly like just pick a random planet and land on it, and then there could be no mission to go there at all, but you could just pick a random moon and just land on this thing and find a million things to do. It literally feels like you're in space. It's amazing. I love it.
So a lot of the things that I read about it since it's come out have said do the main story first and then do everything else, because otherwise you will get lost.
Yes, it's very easy to be like, oh, I have a mission. Like the other night, I was particularly planning on doing a story mission and getting it done, and then like 3 hours later, I was like, oh shit, I haven't done that mission at all. I've just been trekking on. I do want to say, not really a spoiler, but like the coolest part of this game, and this is one example, is there's so much stuff in this game that's like it's a fan service game. Like there's things in it that will just like it that when you see it, you're like, oh, see what you did there, Bethesda, makers of the game. For example, like if you find like there's inventory and loot and things that you could pick up, food items, all that stuff, but you can pick up a potato, but every item in the game has a like description of it, and like the potato has like can be cooked in 40 different ways. Burn them. I forget what the Lord of the Rings one is. Like,
yeah, no, I sent it to you because I saw
kick them in the stew. Stick them in the stew. Like, so like that's like a little nerdy plug for Lord of the Rings. But there was a side mission. I was on a side mission going and taking out a bad guy on a random planet, like the captain of a space pirate group. And every time you kill someone or take out a bad guy, you usually check their body for loot. So I pulled loot out. I find just a random note on a random bad guy. He's not even anyone important. And on this note, it just said secret base. And when I clicked it to read it, it started another side mission that I could do at some point. So I pulled the string and followed this side mission, and it took me to a planet off in the middle of nowhere, super far off the beaten path. There was a secret base. You get into the secret base, and you basically have to fight your way to the bottom of it because it's full of security and all this stuff. And when you get to the bottom of it, you basically find the Batcave. It is literally the Batcave. There's like this cool, like super interesting, legendary ship. And there's like technically it's called the Mantis, and the Mantis Cave. And so from the Mantis base, but you get there and you find this ship. The whole cave, it literally looks just like the Batcave. They've got the Mantis costume in like a glass case, just like the bat suit. It's a famous superhero bounty hunter that's been around for 100 years. And you basically take over as the Mantis. You get take his costume. You get to keep his ship. And then, so like for me, that was the first way to get like legendary gear, legendary spacesuit, weapon, and ship for the rest of the game by doing this random ass side mission. And it was like, there's a lot to the mission. I've already gone way too long, but like it's cool. And that was the thing where when I was playing was like, fuck, this is exactly what I wanted it to be. I'm in love and I don't care who knows it.
Well,
that's pretty much where I'm at.
Good. I'm glad you're excited.
Let's jump into yours.
Everything you
just went on and on. Yes,
you did.
Great. Go buy it.
I just might. Now that I might finally have some time. So, my 6 to midnight was I would touch base. We got some more movie delays, right? Like the strike continues on. Dune got delayed. Dune 2 got delayed till March. Oof.
What a freaking buzzkill.
That one was an odd one to me because I had read some articles that were like, is Oppenheimer Killers of the Flower Moon, and Dune 2 are like those going to be the three
front runners.
Big award contenders. And then like you just took, well, and then the article I read was like you took the biggest technical movie that's not Oppenheimer, right? And dropped it off the slate and made it ineligible. So like it changes sound and it changes visual effects and cinematography. Like it, those probably, that could change. Like let's say Oppenheimer does win like Best Picture and all that, right? We're talking Oscars, right? So say Oppenheimer wins Best Picture, right? There's a good chance it could win director and actor and supporting actor, right? We've already talked about that. Screenplay probably, like, so it could win 5 big ones right away. But now that you've removed Dune from the slate, you've opened up sound and score and cinematography. And so now you're talking about a movie that might have won 4 or 5 Oscars, might now get close to the record.
Just sweeping
right? Like
the whole show.
It literally could turn into, I mean, it could turn into a, Titanic, Ben-Hur, Lord of the Rings, 11 Oscars kind of deal, which
wild.
It's one of those. It was a very interesting read, when you take a movie like Dune off the award slate. Yeah, that's a possibility, and I think it could very well happen. So that was part of my 6 to midnight. The other thing we had to talk about it. You kind of touched on it a little bit. Man, football's back, and I know this is a movie podcast, and we talk about nerd shit, but like you've said before, when it comes to nerd stuff, football's right up there with everything else we do. Like, I mean, we could just as much have a football podcast as we could a movie podcast. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like,
this is true.
So I got the chance to go last week and see the Nebraska Cornhuskers Big Ten season opener in Minnesota on Thursday night. It was beautiful weather. It was a fantastic game. Too many mistakes and went down to the end. They ultimately lost. Now, if that doesn't sound familiar, last night I went to the Chiefs Thursday night season opener in Kansas City. Great game, close game, down to the wire. Too many mistakes, and they lost. So 2 Thursdays in a row. But man, I'm just glad football's back. I'm ready. As we got kids sports on Sunday, but I'm ready to park on the couch and watch some freaking football.
Yes, I can't wait. So, my wife is so annoyed about it. She freaking hates me on Sundays during Jags games, unless they win, which usually isn't that often. So,
well, last year was good.
Yeah, we turned it around finally.
You got the Colts this week, so that should be. I know it's a divisional game, but they're supposed to be one of the worst teams in the league. I saw Bill Cowher last night, or CBS picked the Jags to win the Super Bowl.
I saw that.
I don't know if you saw that. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
I like anytime we've come into a season where everyone says, maybe not everyone, but like the media is really like, all right, the Jags are going to do it. We end up like shitting down our leg for the whole season. So Anthony Richardson's a first round draft pick QB. He is a enigma with a big question mark. So nobody knows. He could be the next coming of Cam Newton, or he could be the next coming of Jamarcus Russell. So I hope that's the case. So,
well, you got to look at it this way too, is obviously the Jags have added Calvin Ridley this year. I mean, he was technically on the team last year, but he's on the team, right? Evan Ingram's back.
They literally tried to keep every single player except their one big free agent. They were like, oh, if we end up trying to overpay him, then we can't keep everyone else. Then you guys took him.
Yeah, Captain False Start.
Yeah, it's so funny because last year he did it every game, every single game.
But not everybody was watching those games.
Yes, and no one like is the Jags aren't a team under a microscope, and the Chiefs are at a point now where like the general public who aren't Chiefs fans want them to lose because they're like the new Patriots. So I know you get so excited when people say that. So like the second everyone's like, oh, the whole world's watching national TV, and dude literally false starts every single play, and he lines up 3 yards in the backfield like a slot receiver. So
Collinsworth said that.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome. So
he's out there playing slot receiver, but yeah, it's
it was
funny.
fun. It was just interesting because like during the AFC Championship game, like players and coaches and fans were pointing it out, like the Jags, he false start every play. and they didn't call it, and then they did finally call it for him, but he just was on their team at this point. So
yeah, interesting.
Anyways, all right.
No,
I
you're
know
good.
literally no one cares about football, but you and I. So
We care about football, and this is our podcast, and we're not getting paid, so we can do whatever we want. Anyway, all right.
Let's jump into it.
Let's jump into it. So that was our 6 to midnight, and that takes us into our. I can't believe you haven't seen it, Kyle. The 2014 Denzel Washington starring movie TV show remake.
Yeah.
The Equalizer, because it was based on an 80s TV show. The Equalizer, directed by Antoine Fuqua. Fuqua?
What?
Fuqua. How do you say his name? I have no idea. I've never heard it said.
Did you say Antoine Fuckwad? Did you say?
I might have thrown that in there. Fuqua?
Antoine Fuckwad.
Fuqua.
That's how you. That doesn't count as a cuss word. You don't have to bleep it out.
Because it's Fuqua.
His last name.
You say it.
His name's literally Fuckwad. I throw a D in there, but
yeah,
the D is silent.
Anyway, who he got his most famous movie was Training Day, which also starred Denzel Washington. So that was,
of course.
Did you know he directed
hit those home runs?
And did you know he directed that Clive Owen starring King Arthur? Did you know that?
The movie that I've talked about on this podcast is like a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, he directed that as well. So anyway, that's information. So Kyle had never seen this movie, and we said it's almost Labor Day. The third one's coming out. Kyle, you got to see the original. You got to see the first one, and then if you like it, then check out the second one. And I'll probably go see the third one. I haven't seen it yet because I was sick and I was busy and there was other stuff going on. But so The Equalizer. Listen, it's a 2014 movie. Like we said, it's based on a 1980s old TV show. I remember seeing it on like USA, when I was growing up, it was like in syndication at that point. But basically
a little bit before my time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or you were a little kid and probably weren't watching USA like I was. But anyway, Denzel is this mild-mannered loner. He's very clean. He's kind of a little OCD in his apartment. He kind of keeps things all neat. He's very set by his watch and his time and all that. And he
looks
works
like
for
a quintessential dad. He's like a full-on white New Balance shoes.
Yeah, like he's mows his lawn and he does his dishes, and he even works at like Home Depot. And there's
Home
like
Mart.
this. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I know.
It's like home.
I thought that
home
was
Lowe's.
Home
it's all of them.
Mart. Yes.
Yeah, Home Mart. But he, basically he like can't sleep. He goes out at night, sits in this diner. He befriends a prostitute. But he kind of keeps to himself, and then.
Okay, well, when you say it like that, like when we're talking about like, oh, he's just a normal guy, he mows his lawn, he washes dishes, he's boring, and he goes out late at night and has coffee with prostitutes. It's like, wait,
you don't do that? What? You don't do that? No.
That was one of the parts that like stood out to me is like, this is weird. It's like 2 a.m. and he's leaving to go read a book at a diner. Like, what?
It's a little weird. The movie's a little weird. It has some odd moments, like it's a little quirky in spots. That's part of it. It seems like he works like in the suburbs, right? He works for freaking Home Mart, right? He lives in this little apartment, and then all of a sudden there's like this. Yeah. We took, and you take forever before you really figure out where he's at, right? Because you're trying to. We were like, where's this at? Because he's, it's this very suburban kind of feel. And then he's like in a downtown diner, and then there's a Russian mob and prostitutes all of a sudden. Yeah. And his friendly teenage girl prostitute, she gets beat up pretty bad.
Yep.
Yeah. So basic premise, he has this set of skills that he just decides to reignite and take a little bit of revenge. Comes out of retirement and basically just kills everybody. That's kind of what he does.
Yeah, he's freaking efficient. It's very efficient.
So what'd you think of it?
I thought, honestly, I really liked it. It was when you know what you're getting, kind of like what to expect. Like, so I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's a movie with Denzel in it, so like it should be good no matter what. But I think some of Denzel's movies are better when they're not these like big over the top, like trying to be epics, but like I forget. There's another one where I don't think it's called Out of Time. There's one where like
Yep, that's
he's
it.
in Miami. Is it called Out of Time? Where he's like in Miami and like that's kind of a smaller movie that didn't have a lot of big actors except him. So I think this
Man on Fire was kind of like that too.
yes, and that's a freaking awesome movie. So I was kind of excited at the thought of like, okay, we could be getting another Man on Fire. Like Man on Fire meets Taken was kind of what the expectation was. So I thought it was great. David Harbour showed up in the movie and I was like, oh, Hoppy's in here. Look at that. So Hopper. Hopper from Stranger Things is a detective, a bad guy detective in this. So
Crooked cop.
Think like Detective Bullock from Batman. So when he popped up, I was like, oh, that's surprising. It was cool, like the moment where he decides to go like, okay, there's this prostitute that comes in every night, same night I'm in there. We have a little bit of chit chat. So we like, we watch out for each other, kind of. He clearly sees that she gets like beat up and put in the hospital. And so he goes on a mission. He shows up at this bar where these Russian mob owns and runs and walks into a room and hands them like a envelope of like $7,000, I think. And it's like
it's like 9,000 and change is what it was.
Yeah. So and he's like, I'm going to give you this. Like, you're going to let her free from being in your employment and that'll be it. And they obviously laugh him off and are pretty much like, you're an idiot. We make more than that with her in like 2 weekends. And so they basically laugh and tell him to fuck off. So he walks like he's leaving and just as he grabs the door, he just slowly closes it and locks it. And you're like, oh shit, this is about to go down. And then very much, I thought there was going to be more of this in the movie, which there wasn't that much of it, but like there's kind of like from the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes moment where like time slows down. He like we're in his head as he's assessing like where people are, what weapons they're holding, like how long it's going to take. And then he sets his like watch timer and then like boom, efficiently goes and just unalives all of these guys. It's fucking crazy in like cool dude action ways,
like cool Denzel way. Like he's like flowing like water. It's all like very effortless and just he stabs that dude. He's like, and it's just
Like it's like this quick little which thinking about some of his other movies, like one of my actually I would say this is probably my favorite Denzel movie is The Book of Eli. Which I don't think a lot of people do. I love it. Atticus Ross does the score. It's an amazing movie. But he has a badass moment in the bar where he's all surrounded. He's this blind dude and he takes out like 14 dudes in the bar in like 30 seconds. And that's what this scene reminded me of. And he like the first guy that gets shot is the main boss. He like caps him in the throat and then he kills all these dudes and then he goes over to him to basically tell him like, all right, you're losing blood. You have like 35 seconds before you die. And then basically tells him like, should have took the $9,000 and change that you laughed at me for. So, and then he disappears. And I think in his head, he was just going to like, all right, I took care of these people. No one will ever know it was me. And we go back on with living. And that basically triggers the mob to send in their like big baddie. Like when things go wrong, they send this guy in. Which I liked the bad guy's character. I don't remember what his name was or what the actor was.
He's played by Martin Sokas, and he's been in a whole bunch. He's like one of those guys where you see him in a movie and you're like, oh, that's the guy that was in that other movie, but you probably don't know his name. But he's in a whole bunch of stuff. He usually plays a bad guy because he kind of got that look.
Yeah, he like is a professional bad guy. So
yeah, and he's a badass in the movie too.
Yes,
I mean, like he's basically like just as efficient at killing people except like a lot more like psychotically.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Yes. It's very much feels like they're maybe one and the same in that they are like a one-man army who could take out anybody, but one is like Batman. He's got morals sort of and tries to hold back and is doing it for a good reason. And the other guy like there's no holding back, no rules.
He doesn't give a shit who he kills, all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I actually love that in a bad guy. It's like, that's what if there really was someone like that out there, which there are plenty of people that are like that, like they like as a bad guy, you got to be like brutal, and he fucking pulls no punches. He goes into the Italian mob or the Irish mob in Boston to basically, as he's trying to track down, like, okay, who just killed our entire Boston operation? I got to figure this out, and goes to the Irish mob, which in Boston are essentially the head honchos there. And he goes right to the main guy, the boss, and beats the shit out of him in front of all of his guys just to send a message. And so I'm not going to walk us through the entire movie, but like I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. Very much like what I was expecting. The ending I felt like was probably where the whole concept of the movie came from. So like the final scene or battle is in Home Mart or Lowe's Depot or Home Lowe's. And it's basically, it's kind of cool. And he does it a little bit throughout the movie when they're trying to track him down at his house. But it's like Denzel is like if Macaulay Culkin, if Kevin McAllister from Home Alone grew up and became like a special forces murderer.
Special forces black guy.
Yeah, black guy. Yeah. If he grew up, became special forces and was black, he would be Denzel Washington in this movie. Because he sets these traps up and all this fun stuff. But like the final battle takes place in Home Depot, where you're seeing like what would happen if someone that was an efficient killer could use all these weapons for ways to take guys out. Like it very much felt like maybe the writer or director was like shopping at Lowe's and was like, you know what? You could totally do a movie in here. Like you could do so many things with these weapons and tools. And for whatever reason, I thought that was like such a cool, like final battle to have. So
I will say this, in the sequel, which you haven't seen the second one yet. You didn't go watch it, did you? So the second one suffered from this more than the first one did. And I've heard the third one has the same issue. The pacing's really weird. Like there are some just drag parts. Like it's slow and you're like, where are we going? Like, what are we trying to get to here? Like, like this isn't the kind of movie I'm watching because I want to know how much the characters like each other. Like, I want to see Denzel kill a bunch of people in really cool ways. Like that's what I want. It's very similar. It's very similar to Nobody. In that movie, he just beats the shit out of a lot of people or kills a bunch of people. That's the kind of movie I really kind of wanted to see Denzel do. You know, and
that's what I was expecting too.
And so the pacing's a little off. I think it's a little weird.
It felt kind of like if like Nobody had to be PG-13, this was kind of like the PG-13 version, even though
but it's not even PG-13.
I know. I know what you're saying. It's very rated R,
but it does feel toned down. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's like they were trying to do the same thing, but less like over the top. I fucking love Nobody. So yeah, you're right. Like we're not watching The Equalizer for character development. We're not watching Taken because we want to know about like all their characters and who they're connected with. We just want to see.
That's another one too. Like, man, like once it gets going, and it gets going pretty quick, like he's just killing people.
Oh, like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
In this movie,
the first one,
I think
Taken.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen any of the other ones because I feel like those movies, and maybe that's the same with The Equalizer. It was a good movie. It was fun. I liked what happened, but like after he takes out the mob, that the bad guy that they sent him, he's taken out all of the Boston mob. Then they send more that guy, which he takes him out, and which was like an entire movie of him fighting this one guy that's the basically like the main weapon of the Russian mob. And then at the end, there's like a 30-second scene where he just flew to Russia and takes out the boss of the entire Russian mob. So it's like, I don't know. That was kind of like, we didn't have to really shoehorn that in so quickly. And maybe that could have been the second. Maybe that could have been the second movie, but it didn't feel like this needs us. Like it's very self-contained and can be its own movie. And I was more just saying that in relation to like Taken. I didn't think Taken needed any more.
It didn't, right? Because like, how many times can somebody in your family get kidnapped? Really, you know, like this almost felt like, and I thought when Equalizer first came out, like I understand it's a remake of an old TV show and all that, but it did feel very much like it was the sequel to Man on Fire that we all wanted and weren't going to get because Denzel dies in that movie, right? Like he dies.
Good point.
End. And so this kind of feels like it's like a spiritual sequel. Like what would have happened if that guy went back and just decided to live a normal life and retire? You know, you kind of get that vibe.
Great point.
And it feels like that's, I mean, like this could have been Man on Fire 2, and except he died. So you can't make a sequel to a movie where the character died. Well, you can, but
and if you did, it would take away from that movie because one of the main things, it's a classic tragedy. You know, the things that make those movies or stories so epic and memorable is because the character dies. Like it means it gives more weight to what happened or them sacrificing themselves, like that movie in particular. It was a ton of fun though. I liked it. It's my kind of movie that like if I just want to throw a movie on at night, like that's a movie that I would throw on and have fun with. So
absolutely. What'd you think? So what would you give it out of 10?
Like a 7, maybe a 6.5, but probably a 7 just because I had fun with it.
So I was going to say 7 as well. I feel like it's a good movie. Again, I'm with you. It's almost like this one. I want this to be like a 6.9 kind of deal. Like I don't know if it's quite a 7, but I don't feel like it's 6.5 territory because I do enjoy this movie. It is a good movie, but the pacing and the slowness and just some of the odd choices made during the movie really do take away from it. If this was a little faster paced, you know, I mean, it could definitely have been an 8. You know, it's that kind of movie. I would really enjoy it, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna go 7 as well. I think that's a fair rating. So nice. Yeah. I like it. Very good.
I think you and I were even talking about it during the movie where we're like, is this gonna like pick up at any point? Like it just takes
you were
so
asking
long
me that,
to get
and I'm
started.
Like, there's the opening scene of the second movie. I had forgotten was in the second movie. I don't know why in my head I thought it was in this one because it's probably it's an awesome scene. But it's like the opening of the second movie. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's like the best part of the second movie is the first 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. That's
and then
way
the rest of it
this one.
Yeah. And this one's the opposite. Like it takes forever for anything to happen.
Yeah.
It feels like anyway.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't give a shit about him reading Ernest Hemingway in a fucking cafe. Just go kill some people, will you? Just go kill some people.
I think I turned to you and was like, what is he doing? Why is he going to read at a Anyways,
that's how we got there.
But you don't need to know these questions. Like don't ask questions. Just watch for the action. So,
but anyway, so 7 out of 10. Like if you haven't seen The Equalizer, it's worth a watch. The second one's not as good as the first one. It's a lot slower. It has a lot more of those pacing issues. I've heard the third one is the best of the 3.
Oh.
I'm excited to find out if that's true. Because like I said, I don't dislike any of them. I just like if this one's a 7, the second one's probably like a 5.5 or a 6. It's on that same scale, but a point lower. So I'm excited to see the third one. But I have heard it is still kind of slow in some parts. So interesting to see.
Reminds me kind of like John Wick. I know a lot of people like love that series, and I think that John Wick is a great series. But like for me, like it's a cool, fun movie. It reminded me of that, like watching it, of just like, oh, this is just like pleasantly, surprisingly good. Like the first time
it have its own, you know, and its own genre. The only thing that I would say that works better for John Wick is John Wick, like it sets up this lore. You know? Like it sets up this world like that, you know, like Denzel's character, you're basically is a retired, like a supposedly dead CIA guy, right? Like that's basically what he was. John Wick sets up this like underground mob hitman continental, like that's the high table, all that's fucking cool. And that's what's really cool about John Wick. And John Wick, like the beginning, like the build up with the dead wife and stuff like that, cared more about that than I did anything that happens at the beginning of the Equalizer, because like you have a lot more motivation for this guy. And when you look on paper, the basic premise of John Wick is bad guys kill his dog and he gets revenge. On paper, that's what it looks like. No, it is. But there's a lot more to it, because his wife had died and he had given up all this to be with her. And then she gives him this dog as like I'm dead now. I want you to take care of this. And then it gets taken away and he just fucking loses it. Right. Like, so yes.
I think that was the part of the movie that like were, at least with John Wick 1, that like locked me in of like, oh, this is about to get good, was after all that happened and he hits the switch that he's going to come back and he starts sledgehammering the concrete floor. I was like, what the fuck is he doing? What's happening? That
scene where he's like no shirt and he's sledgehammering and you're like, he's going to go nuts.
What's he doing? And then he pulls out his fucking badass weaponry box and gold bars and shit. You're like, let's fucking go.
Yeah, it's so good.
Anyway,
all right, that's the Equalizer. That takes us into my favorite segment. There can be only 5.
Only 5.
Yeah, so this week we got a little action movie kind of category, right? That you have, and then I have some. I did kind of an interesting one. But Kyle, you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I can go first. I'm fine with that. Go first?
It's up to you. I'm good either way. All right.
If that's what you want. I mean,
go for it.
Mine stays on theme with what we were talking about. Shout out to Bradley and Bojanski, who were here earlier today and kind of threw out the suggestion, was like, oh, that's actually, they didn't say particular to this, but I decided to do the top 5 greatest coming out of retirement movies. And in terms of just like The Equalizer, this is a movie about someone who in a previous life, they were a badass or they were a killer or a super soldier or whatever that might be. And they've given that life up and something brings them back. And so I thought that would be good. It's kind of like The Equalizer. It's very on brand. The Equalizer is not in my top 5. I will say that.
Mine either.
I have a couple in here that maybe someone will think like, oh, that's not really what I would have thought. But to start, number 5, I have The Rock. We've talked about The Rock before, but John Mason basically is supposed to be James Bond who was arrested. Sean Connery, who plays this character with Nicolas Cage back in the 90s, freaking love The Rock. And in that movie, technically he didn't give up being like the badass he was, but he got arrested and has been in jail for like 40 years or something.
And he's forced out of retirement.
Yes, and they bring him out so he could bust them into the Alcatraz, and he comes back with a vengeance like a badass. He takes out a full platoon of bad guy SEALs. So yeah, The Rock, one of my favorite movies ever. And then movie we've talked about, I've got number 4. I have Taken. This Liam Neeson movie I remember seeing it in theaters. I don't think I had seen the trailer for it at all, but like, I don't know how we ended up going to the movie. Someone was just like, let's go see this movie. So I went, had nothing, like no idea what it was going to be like going in. And that was a movie that I was like blown away of how much like fun it was. Like, this is super cool. Like how he's freaking going, like pulling strings to take people out and to track people down and calling numbers back. And
you got that. Yeah, so many
and
memes.
I will kill you.
So much out of that. Just
it's such
my
great
particular set of skills.
Yes, I have a very particular set of skills.
and like that was the one too. Like, I mean, how many movies has Liam Neeson made since then where he's like he's like
that's
an 80,
him.
He's an 80-year-old badass. That's who he is now.
Yes.
Because of that.
That's his character in every movie, even if it's not.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit.
World.
He doesn't do anything else anymore. He's like, Schindler's List, great. Rob Roy, great. Fuck, I'm taken now. I'm
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah, I'm just gonna kill people
now. Love that. So that is my number 4. My number 3 is John Wick 1. We talked about it already. I freaking love that movie. I love just when like the moment where he's on the phone with the dad, like the head mobster of like the son who fucked up and killed his dog and stuff. When the dad finds out like it's John Wick, and then he like starts basically planning
the best part of that is when he's like, oh, and then he just hangs up the phone.
Yes, like where it tells us, the audience, like, oh shit.
It's Leguizamo telling him on the phone. It's John Leguizamo's character telling him on the phone.
Fucking Sid the Sloth, the pest, let's go. I like that was a cool moment of like, okay, this guy might be a fucking badass. And then I think that transitions into the sledgehammer to get his weaponry. So John Wick, number 3. I'm sure a lot of people would have that at number 1. Number 2 for me of coming out of retirement, The Incredibles. This is a superhero movie. It is not a badass soldier coming back to kill people, but it is a coming out of retirement movie. Everybody loves The Incredibles. It's one of the best movies, one of the best animated movies ever, and maybe one of the top 100. So
one of the best superhero movies ever too.
For sure. But Mr. Incredible, the heroes are no more. They have to go into retirement. 2 superheroes get married. They have a family, and then Syndrome comes and basically brings them all out of retirement to be stopped. And it's cool. Like there's literally like a Rocky montage scene in that movie where he's like working out, pulling chains, and it's like giant trains that he's like lifting weights, but they're in huge locomotives. Like just cool movie, fun movie. Love that. That's my number 2 coming out of retirement movie. And then my number 1 coming out of retirement movie is Nobody, that we talked about already. Nobody is a badass movie. Howie, I think, was the one that originally told me to watch it because I'd never heard of it. It had already come out, like it had been in theaters and then had come out like digitally. And was like, bro, you need to watch this movie. It's fucking kick ass. And it is awesome. It's basically about just an old white guy living like a super boring, like just day-to-day life. He's got a 9 to 5 at a really boring job. It looks like they do a good job in the beginning of the movie making you feel like he's miserable, like doing his day-to-day, making breakfast for the family, taking the trash out. And then I think his house gets broken into and some stuff gets stolen. His daughter's like bracelet gets stolen. And somehow he's on a bus a little bit later on. He's trying to figure out maybe who had done it. And like these 3 punk kids like come in and drunkenly start a fight with him. And he like brutally beats their asses. And it's fucking awesome. And he then turns into the world's most badass killer.
Well, yeah, of course, it turns out those guys are like, that one of them's dad is a mobster, right? And it's
it's very John Wick.
Here we go.
Yep. Yes. It's like, but
the best thing about it is that it's Bob Odenkirk. That is the best thing about it.
Like the most unassuming, just random, like run of the mill 50-year-old, 55-year-old dad, and who just so happens to be like a fucking badass. He fucks dudes up in that movie. And basically you find out later on that he was like a badass like hitman, I think. Or maybe
Well, he
like a
was like
CIA. I don't remember
he was like a
particulars.
CIA. He was like the kind of guy that made people disappear, and for
yeah, like the government
for
used
like the
like
military and stuff. Yeah, like Black Ops.
He's a Black Ops guy. Yeah, for sure. Like there's a cool scene where like he catches a couple of the bad guys when they all try to basically like a full SWAT team try to come in on him on his house, and all of a sudden he puts his family in the basement. And that's also the cool part is his family has no idea. So like they think that he's this most boring, like unassuming guy, and it's fucking awesome. So number 1, Nobody. Go see it if you haven't.
I love it.
The best movie we've talked about so far today.
I wouldn't disagree. I absolutely love your list. Surprisingly, we only have one that match.
Wow.
And here's the deal. Like, okay, so I did like 10 movies, right? And so when I had 10, like nobody was on it. And like, I even had Incredibles on my 10. So when you said that, I was like, fuck yeah, that's awesome. Anyway.
Love that.
But I went with my top 5 coming out of retirement movies. I even had Red on there, which if you've never seen Red, it actually stands for Retired and Extremely Dangerous. Like if you've never seen that, Bruce Willis, Morgan Freeman, John Malkovich,
awesome.
It's pretty entertaining. The first one's pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So number 5, I had Logan. Old Wolverine coming out of retirement. Basically, he's driving a limo. He's trying to stay under the radar. He takes care of Professor X, and he kind of gets pulled back out into this world. And he has this clone daughter that he, and there's a lot to it. And it kind of goes on a road trip, and he kills a lot of people in that movie, and it's badass. And
it's like the first time we got to see like Logan / Wolverine, Hugh Jackman do like the badass Wolverine kind of deaths that we wanted to see.
And and the thing is too is it's like he's very old in the movie. Like they make him look old, right? Like his healing power doesn't work the way it used to. He's aging. He's sick. He's whatever. And it's like it felt so bad that we had all these Wolverine movies or these X-Men movies. And it was the first one where we actually got badass slice people in half Wolverine, right? Like in comic books. Yeah. And then they kill him at the end. And it's like, that's so unfortunate. And that's, I think, why people are really excited for Deadpool with him in it, because they know Deadpool is going to be rated R and they know he's going to kill some people. And we're all excited to see it. And so of course it's delayed.
Of course. But I thought about Logan for my list, but for whatever reason, like it didn't trigger in my head of like, did he come out of retirement or like he was just still being Logan? But you are right. Yeah. And it is a great movie.
Number 4, I have Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Commando is probably one of the lesser known Arnold action movies because obviously it was after Terminator, but like it was before Terminator 2. So he was still not the huge star that he is now or was in the 90s, right? Like this is an 80s movie. But basically like Commando, he's a retired like military badass. He lives like in the fucking mountains in the woods with his daughter, and they like have a mission they need him to come do, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So then of course somebody kidnaps his daughter, and he's like, oh, well, yeah, guess what? Now I'm gonna kill everybody. And it's a badass. His name's like John Matrix in the movie. Like it's the most like action words, and they pull 2 out and they're like, oh, we'll just put these together and make his name. But I
always playing college football, when I would put eye black on, I would always think of Commando because he's got it on his arms, and he's got the big
stick everywhere. Too. It's the big stick when he's putting it on. But yeah, it's a badass movie. If you've never seen Commando, I highly, highly recommend it. It's got some super cheesy one-liners in it too. Like it's a good movie. At number 3, I had A History of Violence with Viggo Mortensen. Yeah, so it kind of has a nobody vibe to it without being as lighthearted, because nobody even kind of has a lighthearted kind of goofiness to it. But basically, like it's Viggo Mortensen, very small town, unassuming. He has a family. I think he runs the diner in town. Basically, he's serving coffee, and some bad guys show up, and they think he's this old mobster guy. And he's like, nah, you got me confused with somebody else, yada, yada, yada. So then they're going to start some problems and start killing people. And he's got to just kill them first, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And, or is it like they come in and he cause a problem and he ends up killing these guys? And then they're like, it's the guy we think it is. And so it causes all these problems. But the cool thing about that movie too, is there's like some family conflict and stuff too, because like he's not there. He's not who they thought he was. And then anyway, it's a really cool movie. There's not a ton of action in it, but the build up and the story is great. Like, and it's Viggo Mortensen, and like that dude's awesome in anything he's in. Like, he's fantastic in anything he's in. Like, we've talked about Lord of the Rings and how every casting choice in that movie was a damn home run.
Yep.
He really has. I don't know if he's ever made a bad movie. Like, and this was a David Cronenberg movie, and it was like David Cronenberg's Mr. like body horror weirdo guy, and then he makes this movie, and it's fantastic. And if you've never seen A History of Violence, highly, highly recommend it. Super good movie. Number 2,
James Gunn, I think, has that ranked as like his favorite comic book movie.
Oh, his favorite comic book movie. Yeah, I think I've seen that before. His favorite comic book movie of all time. And number 2, I had John Wick, because I feel like if you're talking about somebody coming out of retirement and like killing a bunch of people, and we didn't even like say they had to kill a bunch of people, but it
was implied.
It was implied. Shane Falco, The Replacements, comes out of retirement. Hey, technically classic. It would have fit, but anyway, John Wick, the original. We've already talked about it. Oh my god,
that would have fit. That totally would have fit.
I actually kind of thought about it. I'm like, he kind of comes out of retirement.
That would have been good. I fucking love The Replacements. Anyways.
It's so good. But yeah, John Wick, we've already said enough about it, but that's what I have at number 2. And it was really close to being number 1. But I went with what I think is probably the greatest Western of all time. Unforgiven, I had at number 1.
Oh.
Unforgiven. I mean, like, this was like, it came out when I was like 8 or 9 years old, right? I think it was like 91 or 92. I was pretty young. And it's like, I remember watching it with my dad as a kid, and it was like, this movie's awesome. Like, in so many ways. And again, of course, it's not a kid movie at all, like for a lot of reasons, but that's why I am the way I am. But Unforgiven it's the last Western Clint Eastwood ever made, and he said he would ever make. And it's basically, he lives with his 2 kids. His wife's dead. He's a retired old like bounty hunter piece of crap outlaw. And somebody knows who he is, and they come and find him because there's this big bounty that he wants help with. And he's like, no, I'm done with that. I don't drink anymore. My wife's dead. I'm caring for my kids and taking care of my farm. And eventually he realizes he needs the money, and he's like, all right, I'll go do this easy job with this guy. I'll make him do all the work, and then I'm done, and I'm going to go home. So basically he gets his old friend Ned, who's played by Morgan Freeman. I'm just giving a quick synopsis if you've never seen this movie.
I love it.
And they go and they help this guy. They do the job. And then he finds out that they had killed Ned, the townspeople, and the sheriff, the nasty sheriff played by Gene Hackman, killed Ned. And then as soon as he finds out Ned's dead, he literally just picks up a whiskey bottle and just starts just downing it. And you're like, oh shit, something bad about to happen. And it's the climax of that movie is an all-timer. Then he just goes nuts.
It's a classic. It is a classic.
It is. And it was like 30 years ago. So I mean, Clint Eastwood was in his 60s when he did it. And it's oh man, I love that movie. It's a good movie.
He's I would even say that Gran Torino could be considered coming out of retirement. I don't know if you saw Gran Torino.
Yeah, I've seen Gran Torino,
but
yeah,
he's great at coming out of retirement in these movies.
Yeah. And I mean, he is, and he's obviously awesome as a cowboy. I mean, there's the Man with No Name trilogy, which if you've never seen those classic westerns, they are that talk about it. We've talked about great trilogies. That's one that probably doesn't get mentioned enough because it's so old.
Yeah,
and it got better.
Yes.
Like, and The Good and the Bad, the Ugly is the third one. And I mean, it's not, and it's almost like they don't say they're sequels, but it's, it's the same guy.
Yes. You would not know that. I mean, unless you were living at the time that those movies were coming out, like you wouldn't know that they were sequels of each other. Like, honestly, I knew about all of those movies, but it wasn't until I got a little bit older and actually went out of my way to watch them that I realized.
If you've never seen A Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because I think most people have seen The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, but I don't know if they've seen the first two.
Yeah, if you played the video games Red Dead Redemption or Red Dead Redemption 2 or Red Dead Revolver, which was the original game that sparked the other two, like 90% of the main characters in all of those games are based off of the man with no name, Clint Eastwood. So,
anyway, that's my top 5.
Nice, I love that. Yeah. The interesting kind of topic of movies, and
no, it's good.
We went way off track from what we usually do, which I like.
Yeah, no, I like that subject too, and it's kind of, it's one of those topics this is really kind of fun to dig in and think about too, and we both kind of had thought about Incredibles, and as much as I wanted it on the list, just right on the outside looking at it. All right, so mine's a little off the wall. I went with my top 5 movie quotes of all time, and these are my favorites, and so they're not, to me, they're maybe not the most iconic, but they're the ones that I either think are hilarious or are enjoyable every time that I'm like, I fucking love that line every time I hear it. All right. So I don't have I got to say, I don't have I'll be back on here. Okay. As iconic as that is, I don't have that on there. All right. So you'll get right away kind of what I was going for. So number 5, and I've actually said this before on this podcast, and it's from a movie I just talked about, from the movie Commando. Remember when I said I'd kill you last? I lied. And he drops the guy off the cliff. I love it. It's hilarious.
Gangster.
And it is. It's Arnold just, I said I'd kill you last. I lied. Boom. And he drops him, and the guy falls in California, off a cliff. I love it. All right, I got to make sure I get this one right.
Is that the one where a couple the episode where you were like, remember when I said I'd kill you last? It's like,
yeah, you did. I lied.
I lied.
Yep.
That is the greatest moment in this podcast history.
And that was one or two episodes. That was episode 2. Anyway.
I know.
Anyway, that's what I got at number 5. It's
all been downhill.
All right, I got to make sure I get this one right. So the movie Jackie Brown from Quentin Tarantino. So this is a line uttered by Samuel L. Jackson's character. And I love it because it's hilarious. And of course, this has profanity in it, but we have plenty of that in this podcast anyway. AK-47, when you absolutely positively got to kill every motherfucker in the room except no substitutes. And he's saying it to Robert De Niro on a couch watching this video. And he's an arms dealer. And have you ever seen that movie, Jackie Brown?
No, I've never seen that movie. I've seen Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown is my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie.
I'm, maybe hate me, but I feel like not Jackie Brown, but Quentin Tarantino movies. I appreciate his newer ones, but some of his older ones that made him really famous, I like. They just don't do it for me.
Oh,
I'm not going to say what movie.
Pulp Fiction,
but
interesting.
It doesn't push my buttons. It's just kind of like
hot take.
Yeah. Fire me, but
yeah, Jackie Brown. Man,
Hateful Eight though, great freaking movie.
Great movie. Yeah,
it's
Django.
Awesome.
Do you like Django?
Django. Yeah, those
Glorious
go together.
Bastards. You like?
And like I said, his newer ones.
So you just don't like you don't like Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
All right, interesting.
Yeah.
We might have to sit down and watch Jackie Brown sometime because it's definitely.
Is it Pulp Fiction but a different version?
Okay. It's based on an Elmore Leonard novel, which he did Justified. Like Elmore Leonard wrote the stories that Justified was based on. Out of Sight. Do you remember the movie Out of Sight with George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez? You remember that movie?
Oh yeah.
He wrote that. Elmore. So it's kind of along those lines. It's Yeah, it's a hell of a cast though. I mean, it's like Robert De Niro, Samuel L. Jackson,
Hell of a model American. Sorry,
Bridget Fonda, Pam
he
Grier.
said hell of a
Man,
cast, and it just made me think of Ace Ventura and one hell of
yeah.
a model American. Talking about Ray Finkel.
Anyway, you got to Jackie Brown. It's a good movie, man. And we'll have to
All
watch
right,
this
I'm
sometime.
gonna dog ear it here.
All right, and then number 3, I had I came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Who said it? Do you remember?
When you originally just started talking about that, all I could think of was Jesse the Body Ventura in the Predator movie.
Oh well, you wait. That one might be coming. All right,
God.
so that
that was what it made me think of.
I came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Is Rowdy Roddy Piper in the John Carpenter classic?
Yes, I did know that.
Yeah, so that's what I had at number 3. At number 2, I had I'm not locked in here with you. You're all locked in here with me. Right.
Gosh.
Which was
badass.
Jackie Earle Haley as Rorschach in the Watchmen.
What a fucking badass line.
Watchmen would have been a good coming out of retirement movie too.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Wow. We really blew this one.
Well, I don't know if we blew it. There just was a lot of good options.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And then I'm gonna say the word F word because I'm not gonna say the word.
Oh God, you are gonna do it.
That's my number 1. I love that quote.
No.
Cracks me up. When Jesse the Body Ventura is offering like old school chew to the guys on the chopper and Predator, and he says, "You're all nothing but a bunch of slack-jawed F word. This stuff will make you a sexual tyrannosaurus, just like me."
It's like such a one. They never play that scene when on the TV version for obvious reasons. So
you can't leave that in.
Yeah, so you only see that scene. Like that's a quote that I don't think a lot of people know, unless you saw it in theaters
or on DVD,
you put the movie
Blu-ray.
on and actually watch it. Which who's doing that these days? So, like, I didn't know about that till way after I'd seen the movie multiple times. It is when you hear it, you are like, wow. If the world heard this now, he would be canceled.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal about that. Nobody else could deliver that line.
Yes, Jesse the Body Ventura he's a former famous WWF wrestler. Then he was a famous WWF commentator.
Then he was the governor of Minnesota.
And then he became the governor of Minnesota. So dude, actually, what the hell is the name of the bald actor for Mad TV? I can't think of his name.
It's Will something.
Yeah, Will Sasso.
Yeah,
so Will Sasso, I just watched a week or two ago. He does this fucking
spot on,
hilarious spot on impression of Jesse the Body, and it's fucking hilarious.
Listen, I'm not going to apologize because that quote is highly inappropriate. Okay,
but it's in a movie where it made you laugh.
It's the delivery, and it's Jesse the Body Ventura, and that's a great movie and an iconic scene, and like, man, I crack up every time I hear it.
Love that. Those are great. I mean, the list in general are all. I'm glad you put in funny lines because, like, when I first did this, I was like, okay, like, Luke, I am your father, or like the force be with you or something. You know, like the classic things that we remember. But then I was like, I want to do some fun ones that like my friends and I super laugh at. So I have for number 5 is a quote from a movie called Full Metal Jacket. And my buddy Sean, for whatever reason, this is like the quote he always goes to, but they're at boot camp and the drill sergeant is like is always picking on Private Piles, who ended up Vincent
D'Onofrio.
Vincent D'Onofrio, who is the kingpin in Daredevil. but this is a movie back from like the 80s. He's yelling at this dude, and he's always picking on him, and he goes, and this is a quote, okay? He goes, "Are you gay, boy?" And he goes, "No, sir." He goes, "Bullshit, you look like you could suck a golf ball through a garden hose." And it is, for whatever reason, that line just hits out of the park every time I hear it. It just cracks me up. So
Arlie Ermy has so many lines in that movie. I always like,
dude,
what's your major malfunction private file?
Yeah. He's like, just always calling him numbnuts and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, he did like that one movie, and he is like the quintessential like drill sergeant because he's obviously
there's
a real
a story
lifeguard.
behind that. He was hired to be the like
the military advisor,
like the liaison,
right?
yeah, like the advisor, and like the guy that they hired to play that part, like Arlie Ermy was so much better. They were like,
Yeah,
you're just gonna do it.
Yes, and then he became like the most well-known like TV movie drill sergeant because he was one in real life.
Absolutely.
But and then number 4, this is a movie quote that we have laughed about on this from one of my favorite movies, Starship Troopers, where they go into this base where it's been taken over. All the people are dead, and they find a guy that's dead on like the desk, and they pull him back, and they go, "What's happened?" And he sticks his fingers in this hole in his brain, and he slowly looks at his hand, and freaking Michael Ironsides turns and he looks at the camera and he goes, "They sucked his brains out." It's like the fucking worst movie quote that is so amazing ever. So
That's a good one.
Those are my funny ones. The rest are actually kind of serious. They're just movie quotes that I really enjoy. Number 3 is from Braveheart, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. I know people give Mel Gibson shit for some of his movies, but like he is so good in Braveheart with his emotions and just making everything feel really impactful. At the very end, he's in jail. He's about to be basically executed in front of the country that hates him, and the princess comes in to have like her last conversation with him, and she's trying to like urge him to like just say you'll kneel, like just swear your loyalty to the king and you'll survive, or they'll make it quick or whatever. And he has a quote. He says, "Every man dies, not everyone lives." And like for whatever reason, that line just, my Scottish accent doesn't hit it as well as Mel Gibson's does, but man, it's just a quote that I fucking love. It needs to be put on like one of those like house music songs that like the music builds up and then it stops, and then here comes Mel Gibson, and then
Big Booty Mix.
Yeah,
Volume
dude,
24.
Yes.
Put it in.
I know those guys probably listen to our pod, so I just gave you a song. You're welcome.
2 friends listen to our pod.
Is that what they're called? 2 friends?
Yeah, they're called 2 friends. They actually DJ'd the Bud Light tailgate last night.
Oh, nice. Oh, I think Anthony had said that was happening or something. Love that. You probably thought I was going to say freedom. Freedom.
Well, I thought about the speech when he's riding on the horse. I thought you were going to do that one.
Or also a classic.
They'll never take our freedom.
Number 2 for me is sorry, I was like, wait, I thought that was one, but I did switch them around a couple of times. But my number 2 favorite movie quote that's just freaking badass is we have 3 movies. We just walked across the entire planet for 3 whole movies. The armies of the whole world have fought each other. We finally reached the end, and King Aragorn looks to the hobbits as they all come and go to bow to the king, who is now the returned king. And Aragorn to everyone and to them says, what does he say? "My friends, you bow to no one." And then like Aragorn does his knee, and then the whole like kingdom bows down to the little tiny hobbits. And it's just like, oh, it's so good. So good. Look at us talking about Vigo. this episode. He's cleaning up shop right now. And then number one, classic, one of the best zingers ever. And you know, a movie quote is a classic when it wasn't in the script, when they go off course and write it. He's about to get frozen in kryptonite or carbonite, and she says, "I love you," and he says, "I know," and then like literally he turns into a frozen popsicle. But like, man, talk about a fucking badass. Han Solo's entire character is in that one line of like, that's who he is. Because we know he loves her. We know he's obsessed with her. But he can't say that. She says, "I love you." I know. Fucking classic. Can't get any better than that.
It's pretty good.
All right.
I like it. Those are fun, man. I love it. Those are good.
Yeah, this is a weird list, but in like a totally fun, enjoyable way. And now I'm like, fuck, I should have done more funny ones because there are a ton of funny movies. I've got a good one that I would say is an honorable mention. This is from the movie The Road to El Dorado, which you have never seen. And it's shocking because it's one of the best, hilarious, kind of adult, funny cartoon movies. But like him and his buddy are scam artists, and they're fighting each other with swords because they got caught with loaded dice, and then to get out of these guys beating them up for it, they pretend that they tricked each other. And so they're like fighting each other with swords, even though they're best friends. They're tricking everybody. But like, as they're fighting with swords, one of the brothers, Julio, goes like, "You fight like my sister." And then the other, Julio, comes and says, "I fought your sister. That's a compliment." It's just like the goofiest fucking line.
That's funny.
My buddy Sean and I say it too much. So anyways.
That's good.
There it is.
I like it.
There's our lines.
Good stuff. Man, I like it. I dig it. That was good. That was a good category. Both were good categories. I enjoyed those. Those are good.
Yeah.
So now we have to try and think of something good for episode 21.
Yeah.
Right.
What do we got on the docket for next week?
Yeah, so that brings us to the end of the episode. That was episode 20, the 2014 Denzel Washington action film, The Equalizer.
The 2021.
Yeah, I sound very professional when I do that, don't I?
Yeah, it was classic.
So next week we're going to do episode 21. We're going to do big premiere movie of the week, A Haunting in Venice. The third movie of Kenneth Branagh's Hercule Poirot, Agatha Christie classic sleuth. So first one was Murder on the Orient Express, then we had Death on the Nile, and now we have A Haunting in Venice, which it looks like it has a very different tone. More of
it looks like a horror movie.
It does.
Yeah,
they
it
marketed
just looks like a horror movie.
They've marketed it as such, but we know there's something afoot.
Yes.
So we'll be back.
I love Hercule Poirot, the character. He doesn't get enough credit as, say, like a Sherlock Holmes,
right?
But he truly should.
I agree.
Even John Malkovich has a 4-episode miniseries called The ABC Murders.
He's been portrayed like a million times in film and television. So I do like Kenneth Branagh's version very much.
Yep.
I mean, that mustache is ridiculous, but it's also pretty badass.
Yes.
I mean, if I could grow that thing, I would.
They do a good job of really conveying his quirkiness, uniqueness of his just being super weird.
Yeah.
So I think at the beginning of the first one, he's eats a poached egg, or it has to be like a perfect egg in a little. Anyways,
well, then
we'll talk about it next week.
In the second one too, there's he's got certain desserts, and there's an odd number, and he has a little freak out moment. Yeah. But yeah, that's going to be episode 21. So that brings us to the end of episode 20. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give us that like and subscribe. Click that bell. Leave us a comment. Give us suggestions for top 5. We would love to see those.
Yes.
If you're not watching us, comment, please. If you're not watching us on YouTube, hopefully you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Podcast Index. And then we can also be found on social media for some of our short videos at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. That's the end of the episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next week.
Bye. All right.
That's good.
Yeah.